Thank you, Richard, and it's great to be here. Thank you. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about space adventures and our perspective on this. We come from, I think, a slightly different perspective compared to the rest of the panel here. And we're not a technology development company. We buy technology and use it for our end customers. Can I get to the next slide? So, Space Adventures' mission is to open up space for private exploration. And by building a series of successful, privately funded missions. And I think, without sounding too pompous about it, Space Adventures really created and demonstrated that there is a commercial market. My use of the phrase commercial is private citizens paying for tickets to fly into space. Dennis Tito first flew in 2001, so it's 10 years now. We're actually having a little party at the end of this month to celebrate that 10-year anniversary. And it's quite extraordinary that Dennis did step up to the plate such a long time ago and took that risk to, it was not an easy path for him, and it wasn't an easy path for Space Adventures, but it's something we're very proud of. Here, the next slide. Since then, we've sold over $300 million of space flights to essentially 7 private astronauts who flew on 8 short duration missions to the ISS. Each of our clients spent 10 days. We have also recently signed the first client on our circumlunar mission, which I'll touch on in a moment. I can't disclose the identity of that client at this point, so please don't ask me that question because I was going to have to say no. We're also working with Boeing as with the rights to sell tickets on the Boeing vehicle when it's ready to commercial customers, as in private citizens. We've pre-sold about $2.5 million worth of suborbital spaceflight reservations, and we also have a very active zero-G operation. If any of you want to experience what it's like to be in space but can't afford our extremely high prices, I suggest you try out the zero-G flights. Can I get the next one? So these are our customers. There is a repeat customer down there, Charles Simoni, we're very proud of. He flew twice, he enjoyed it so much. Each of them have spent about 10 days, and the important thing for those of you who don't know, they've all flown on the Russian Soyuz rockets and spacecraft. And we're very excited about some of the developments that are going on, whether it's with SpaceX or with Boeing or any of the other companies that are participating. And Space Adventures is a great demonstration of how a private company and a government agency working together can be successful. And we've helped the Russians achieve some of their goals over the years. And I think we're just an example of what is going to be a common case within the space industry over the next decade and beyond. Sorry. Next slide, please. So my prediction, and you can tell me if I'm wrong in a few years' time, is the next person who's going to get a chance to see this particular view will be a private citizen. And it will be on the Space Adventures mission, the circumlunar mission. It's not going to land on the moon. It's not going to do what Buzz was lucky enough to do, but it's going to just go around the far side. But I think it's still a pretty spectacular view, isn't it? And we think that's going to happen in the next 3 or 4 years. So we've contracted with the first customer. We need to. There will also be a Russian cosmonaut as the pilot of that mission. But that's a pretty exciting development, and again, it has relevance to the conversation that we're having here today. Can I have the next slide, please? So, very simple demonstration of what we're going to be doing. We're going to get to about 100 kilometers of the moon's surface. Now, we see this not just as a one-time sort of PR stunt, so to speak, for a wealthy individual to achieve their dream. We see this as the first in a series of follow-on missions. We know there are people out there who want to take this trip at some point in their lifetime, and it's not just going to be a one-off by any stretch. Of course, we have visions of being able to do other things, not just go around the moon. It would be great if we were able to send private citizens to be able to land on the moon, to go to other destinations, but that's, I think, too far in the future for me to give any further speculation on. But again, this is a great example of commercial space adventures and government, the Russian Space Agency, cooperation. We are using Russian hardware, and that's it's hardware that they are. Some of it is already in existence, and some of it they're developing for this purpose and for this mission. But it will have future applications for them as well. Have the next slide, please. So, the work that's being done, and I think John touched on it quite well, their focus really for a lot of these companies, and I know it is for Boeing, is LEO right now. And we certainly, as Space Adventures, hope that they flourish, that some of the other companies who are working to deliver different contracted services to NASA flourish, and that we as a company are able to piggyback on those efforts and to be able to send more private citizens into space over the course of the next decade. Because we know there is a demand for it. And we know that the private citizens can really supplement to drive the volume in this industry, which is going to drive down costs, which helps long-term development of other programs as well. So it really does have an important part to play. And I think that has become acknowledged by a lot of the players within this industry over the last couple of years. Have the next slide. So my feeling is the current economic climate doesn't really allow governments to do some of these slightly more risky, slightly more adventurous exploration activities alone. I think it's a very, very difficult thing to fund, and it's a very difficult thing to justify. I think as we've seen in what's happened with NASA policy over the last 5 years and how it's changing course, and I think there is a new path that will be defined. But they're recognizing that it's a very expensive thing to do. And I think a realistic path is to say, how can governments and commercial entities work together to really push these boundaries? I think we're seeing that in play at the moment within the LEO environment, and I think some of the same arguments will apply for other destinations, whether that is the Moon or Mars or otherwise. Can I have the next slide? That's it. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.